In this video we want to talk about how to review a completed survey, or perhaps more particularly how to look out for problems and issues associated with a completed survey. Customer satisfaction surveys are designed to obtain customer feedback regarding customer satisfaction, regarding their retention and how to maintain customer loyalty. So customer satisfaction surveys are widely used by marketing departments to try and work out how the customers see the product and how loyal the customers are to the product, and indeed what changes the customers would like to see in the product itself. A survey is a marketing technique which focuses, monitors, and evaluates and assesses customers' preferences and needs. So a marketing technique that focuses and monitors and evaluates and assesses customer preferences is important because it feeds back information through perhaps the marketing department who have commissioned the marketing survey. But it feeds back information that is very important to the business because it keeps the product redesigned and up to date and makes sure that the company is responsive to the customer's requirements. So it's a way of getting information from the customers which enables the business to make more precise decisions regarding its practices and regarding the marketing and production of the product, and make sure that the product is suitable to meet customers' needs. A customer satisfaction survey must be constructed for a purpose and must be in line with organizational goals and objectives. There's no point in doing a customer satisfaction survey if there's no purpose. It's a waste of resources, it's a waste of time and resources. So it must be targeted at something. It must be aimed at producing information that's useful to the business and which will help the business make more precise decisions that are more effective in achieving its organizational goals and objectives. A survey must be reviewed to assess its effectiveness and if the survey successfully achieves its purpose. So simply making a survey and delivering the survey is not in itself good. It is only good if it's effective. So its effectiveness should be assessed, and there should be ways in which the whole process is monitored and reviewed. So the survey should be properly designed, for example. The questions should be clear and the target audience or the target group selected with care. And the process of delivering the survey should be monitored, and then its analysis should be carefully considered. So it's not a haphazard exercise. This is one that has to be carefully planned and thought about, and therefore it does require resources. A survey can be reviewed against the following factors: the time and cost. And I'll look at these in more detail in a few moments, but essentially time and cost. How long does it take to do the survey? What's the time dimension associated with the survey? What's the cost of the survey? As I said, I'll talk about those again in a few moments. The response rate, question completion rate, reliability and validity of the findings, the extent to which the survey meets its purpose and objectives. So we're setting down various criteria here against which the survey can be assessed. And here we've got 5 different points: time and cost, response rate, question completion rate, and so on. So let's go across those in a little more detail. First of all, time and cost. Sufficient time must be allocated in completion of the survey. The survey should in effect be planned so that the time it takes to complete the survey is carefully worked out. But it also should incorporate other timings, for example, the time to analyze it, the time to place it in front of the respondent, the time for reflection and the analysis of the results. So there are many time dimensions involved here. Working out how the survey should be designed, the questions, the layout, the wording of the questions, it all takes time. A survey must have a realistic completion date in order to collect results and measure response rates. So it shouldn't be open-ended. There should be a completion date. The survey should be initiated at a certain period of time, and it should be completed by a certain period of time. Otherwise it tends to drag on, and there's no completion date and there's no urgency about the whole process. And this will have impacts on the cost of the survey as well. So there should be a completion date. If time factor has not been communicated to customers, then there will be no sense of urgency to complete the survey. So when the survey has been delivered, the customer should be asked to complete it by a certain date and return it by a certain date. Or if it's delivered by an interview or a field worker, then the field worker should return the completed responses by a set date. As I said, it shouldn't just drag on and be open-ended so that there's no time period for which the analysis is conducted. And of course, that means that the responses will become progressively out of date. So it's important to have stop periods. It's important to have a period and say that period is now stopped, and now we're on to the analysis. And then when the analysis is complete, that stops, and now the report is ready for internal review. And it goes to the chief executive officer, the head of the marketing department, or whoever the commissioning person was. Cost is a factor which must be taken into account also. Setting up a customer satisfaction survey requires a budget. How much will be spent on the customer satisfaction survey? What's the budget? And clearly the scope of the survey will be conditioned, or conditional I should say, upon the budget. If the budget is large, there'll be a more extensive survey. If it's a small budget, a smaller survey. There are costs involved in producing the survey. Distribution, gathering results, and presentation of findings. They all require a budget. These are not free activities. They require time, personnel time, they require perhaps computing time, they might require specialist software. It depends. So there are issues involved in the preparation of a survey, in its analysis, and in its presentation. And these are cost elements that should be borne in mind. Then, of course, there's the reflection period. Was the allocated budget sufficient? And if it wasn't sufficient, how did this impact on the survey? Are the results of the survey still reliable? Or was the money spent, because it was insufficient, that money spent, was it dead? Is it useless exercise? Would it have been better to have a slightly larger budget and complete the exercise so there's more confidence in the results? So it's necessary to look at the whole budgetary process associated with surveys to make sure that they are adequately financed. The response rate. Well, a response rate refers to the number of completed surveys. Customers don't complete all the surveys they get. Customers have limited time. They don't want to spend all their time completing surveys, and if it's a large complex survey, they don't want to sit down and think about it and try to find which question they've answered and what the words mean. And so the response rate may be a function of the complexity of the exercise. If it's a complicated survey, it may put off respondents, in this case the customers. There are issues about response rates and what response rates are acceptable. For example, if 10% only don't respond, is that okay? Is that acceptable? What if 90% didn't respond? Is that acceptable? And what's the threshold? So response rate is very important. A high response rate could indicate customer loyalty to a product. A lot of people are interested in the product, so they want to respond. They want to help the company to continue to produce the product or continue to refine the product. They want to ensure that the product is still going to be produced. They are interested in the product, so they have loyalty to the product, and that would perhaps foster this involvement with the product and involvement with the survey. They want to complete the survey to help the company. Response rates determine reliability of data. A high response rate will help the organization in decision making. And it'll also mean that the data is more reliable because people think more about it. They're more careful about responding. They're interested in the product perhaps, and they want to help the company. So if the response rate is high, it means perhaps the people filling out the survey, the respondents, they took time, they thought about the questions, they were careful in the choice of answers they gave, so the results are more reliable. The question completion rate. Well, a survey consists of questions that are important for marketers when gathering results. That's what a survey is. It's a series of questions, a series of investigations into some aspect of the relationship between the product and the customer. If majority of customers ignore or return incompleted questionnaires, well, this indicates that certain questions may be inappropriate, or open questions may be time-consuming, complex, or poorly worded. So if the response rate is not very good, maybe, just maybe, that the survey itself was badly designed. Surveys, when they're initially designed, should be piloted with a sample of selected people who will give comments about the wording and the complexity of the survey and the length of the survey, and these comments should be taken on board for the final survey, the one that will be used in practice. So a pilot survey could help to iron out these issues. But it's important that the survey is properly designed. Incomplete surveys will impact on data collection and reliability of results. If the surveys are incomplete, if there's a high non-response rate, then the results may be unreliable, which means perhaps the resources spent on the survey have been wasted. So it's important that the survey is sorted out before significant amounts of resources are committed. Perhaps having a pilot survey, like I suggested earlier, to iron out problems, and which will help to increase the response rate. But it may also be the case that simply respondents are becoming weary of completing surveys. They're being asked to do too many surveys, and they don't have the time and they don't have the interest. They don't want to spend their lives completing surveys. So maybe some incentive should be given to them to complete it. Perhaps everyone who completes a survey will be entered into a raffle for a free holiday. or something like this. So it may help, or there might be a smaller amount of remuneration for completed surveys or something of this nature. On this reliability and validity of findings, well, a successful survey is dependent on factors such as reliability and validity. A customer satisfaction survey may consist of questions that are reliable and meet the objectives of the survey. So the questions are reliable, the questions are relevant, the questions are important. They're not trivial questions. For example, would the survey produce the same results if conducted with a different customer segment? So, in other words, are the questions clear? Does everyone understand the same thing about the question? Is it clear what the question is asking? Or is it open to interpretation? Because if it is, then the different respondents will be answering, in a sense, different question. So for it to be reliable, all the respondents must understand the question in the way it's set. They must understand it the way it's meant to be. It shouldn't be open to interpretation. A survey must ensure validity. The purpose of a survey must not be defined and questions must be appropriate for the purpose of the research. So the purpose of the survey should be clear-cut, and the questions should be appropriate. So it's a valid exercise. It's one that the results are reliable and they are indicating true responses. The extent to which surveys meet its purpose and objectives. Well, a survey is only successful if it meets the purpose of the research. So that's what a survey is meant to do. It's meant to meet the purpose of the research. What is it that the company is trying to determine? So pose the questions that the company wants to ask, and then the survey should address those questions. It should be clearly worded. It should not be ambiguous. All the points I've just made earlier about reliability and validity and so on. So it should be clear-cut. In other words, anyone answering the question should have a clear understanding of what's meant by the question. And what's meant by the question is what the people who wrote the question had in mind. Does the survey provide enough information to identify current shortfalls within the business? Well, really, to some extent, it depends on what the purpose of the survey is. The survey may be related to a particular issue. Other issues will be the subject matter of other surveys, perhaps. Or it could be that it may relate to a particular product and may look at all of the different aspects of the product, from its marketing, its production, the perceptions of quality, experiences in use. So it may involve lots of questions on those bases. So does the survey provide enough information to identify how the customers see the product and see the business? Or is it a small survey looking at one small aspect? So it depends. Depends on what the purpose of the survey is. Is the feedback obtained from the customer appropriate in helping the business improve their services, and provide better customer care? So the responses that come back on the survey, can those be used? Can they be analysed in a way that they become meaningful, particularly when they're aggregated, when they're added up? If 50 responses come back, there may be 50 answers to a particular question. Is there some way of working out what the overall view is? How do the marketing personnel or the statisticians or whoever it is within the business that are charged with the analysis of the survey, how do they aggregate this information so it becomes meaningful? And will this enable the business then to make better decisions about the product, about its own practices, about quality, about the design of the product, and so on? So these are some of the issues that need to be looked at in the context of a completed survey. Clearly, the size of the survey has not been an issue here in this particular consideration, in this particular discussion, because that's decided in other videos. That's decided elsewhere. But once the size of the survey has been determined, once the wording has been correct, once all of the issues about validity and reliability and response rate and so on, once these have been ironed out, then at the end, was it a useful exercise? And was the information that was produced, was it meaningful? So that's all I'm going to deal with on this particular topic, the review of a completed survey. A short class just looking at some particular issues associated with customer surveys. Let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.